It's 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. A trader, let's call him Mark because this is basically every trader's story with a name changed, just closed his fourth trade of the night. He was up 12 this week. Best week he's ever had. 20 minutes ago, he felt like a genius. Now he's staring at a red number that just erased 3 days of gains in one trade. And instead of closing his laptop, walking away, and reviewing what happened tomorrow with a clear head, he opens a fifth position, bigger than the last one, because he knows this one will work. It doesn't. By 1 a.m., Mark has given back 2 weeks of profit in 90 minutes. Not because the market changed, not because his strategy stopped working, because he changed and he didn't even notice it happening. If any part of that story made you uncomfortable, keep watching. Because what happened to Mark isn't rare. It's not even unusual. It is statistically the single most common reason trading accounts die. And by the end of this video, you're going to be able to catch it in yourself in real time before it costs you the way it cost him. Here's something almost nobody tells new traders. The strategy you're using right now is probably fine. Genuinely. Most basic strategies, trend following, support and resistance, simple breakout systems, have a real, positive edge when followed exactly as designed. So if the strategy is fine, why do most traders still lose? Because a strategy is a set of rules for a rational person to follow. And the moment real money and real emotion enter the picture, you stop being that rational person. You become someone else, someone with the same brain, but a completely different relationship to risk, ego, and fear. Professional risk managers and trading psychologists generally agree on something close to this split. Your edge, your strategy, your setup, your entries accounts for maybe 20 of your long-term results. The other 80 is what happens in your head after you click the buy or sell button. Not before, after. That's the part nobody teaches you. That's the part this video is about. There are 4 stages to the trap that took Mark's 2 weeks of gains in 90 minutes. Every blown account, almost without exception, passes through some version of this exact sequence. And the trap is sneaky because each stage feels completely justified while you're inside it. It never feels like a mistake in a moment. It only looks like one afterward. Let's take them one at a time. The trap never starts with a loss. That's the part people get wrong. It starts with winning. You take a trade. It works. You take another. It works again. And somewhere around the 3rd or 4th win in a row, something shifts in how you see yourself. You're not just following a strategy anymore. You're good at this. You start to feel like you've found the thing 90 of traders never figure out. This feeling is not harmless. This is statistically the single most dangerous moment in a trader's entire journey. More dangerous than the losses themselves. Here's the mechanism behind it. When you win, your brain releases dopamine, not just as a reward for being right. Dopamine is released in anticipation of reward, which means the more you win, the more your brain starts craving the next trade before you've even properly reviewed the last one. This is the exact same neurological pathway involving gambling addiction. It's not a metaphor. It's the same chemistry. So what actually happens during a winning streak? You start increasing your position size, telling yourself you're managing risk more efficiently when really you're chasing the feeling. You start skipping steps in your checklist because this one's obviously a winner. I don't need to double check. And most dangerously, your brain starts pattern matching setups that don't actually exist because it's now actively hunting for reasons to keep the streak alive. Psychologists call this the hot hand fallacy, the belief that because something has worked recently, it's more likely to keep working. It's the same bias that makes a gambler bet bigger after 3 wins at the blackjack table. Casinos are built to exploit this bias. The market does the exact same thing to traders, except it doesn't even need to try. You do it to yourself. I want you to actually remember this next sentence, because someday it will save you real money. The market has no memory of your winning streak. Every single trade is statistically independent of the last one. 3 wins in a row do not make the 4th trade any safer. They only make you feel safer. And that manufactured feeling of safety is precisely what sets the trap for what comes next. Because eventually, always, the streak breaks. The streak always ends. Every single time. And when it does, something happens that's much bigger than losing money. You lose your identity. 10 minutes ago, you were the trader who's finally figured it out. Now you're just someone who lost money. And that gap between who you thought you were and what just happened creates a very specific kind of psychological pain. Not sadness, something closer to a threat response. Your brain treats almost like a status attack. And your brain hates that feeling so much, it will do almost anything to make it disappear immediately. Not tomorrow, not after a walk. Right now, in the next 10 minutes, using the fastest tool available to you, another trade. This is where revenge trading is born, and it rarely announces itself as revenge trading. It disguises itself as decisiveness. I see an opportunity, I'm just taking it. But look closer, and the pattern is always the same. The position size creeps up because I need this one to actually matter. The setup criteria get looser because you're not really looking for a valid setup anymore. You're looking for permission to click the button. And when that trade fails too, because it was never a real setup, it was an emotional reaction wearing a trading strategy as a disguise. The pain doesn't go away. It compounds. So you do it again, bigger, and again. This is the spiral that took Mark's 2 weeks in 90 minutes. It wasn't a strategy failure. His strategy never got a vote after the first loss hit. It was an emotional regulation failure, dressed up to look like trading. Here is the single most important reframe I can give you about this stage. Revenge trading was never about making the money back. It was about making a feeling go away. And the market is extremely good at one thing. It will happily keep taking your money in exchange for that momentary relief, trade after trade, until the account hits zero. So how do traders who actually survive long-term handle this moment? With a rule that sounds almost too simple to work, and works precisely because it doesn't rely on willpower in the moment it's needed most. After a loss that genuinely stings, you do not take another trade until the emotional charge is gone. Not until the money is back. Many professional traders build this in as a hard, non-negotiable rule. 2 losses in a row in a single day, and trading is over for that day. Not because a third trade is guaranteed to lose, because the person who would be taking that third trade is no longer capable of evaluating it clearly, and they know that about themselves in advance, which is the entire point. Here's the part almost nobody expects. After enough cycles of a spiral, a new problem shows up. Not overconfidence. The opposite. Fear. You watch a setup form, exactly the way you've practiced it 100 times. And instead of taking it, you hesitate. What if this is another trap? What if I'm wrong again? So you wait for more confirmation that never actually arrives, and the trade plays out perfectly without you in it. Now a second emotion takes the wheel. FOMO. You watch the price keep climbing, and every second that passes makes the trade look more obviously correct in hindsight, until the discomfort of missing it becomes unbearable, and you jump in late without your original setup criteria, purely because you cannot stand watching it happen without you. Here's the twist that trading psychology research keeps confirming. Fear and greed are not opposites sitting at 2 ends of spectrum. They are the exact same underlying problem, an inability to tolerate uncertainty, wearing 2 different masks. One mask freezes you before entry. The other drags you in after it's too late. The traders who struggle the most often experience both in the same single trading day. Too fearful to take the good setup in the morning, too greedy to skip the bad one in the afternoon. Same root cause, opposite costume. And here's why just be more confident or just be more careful doesn't fix this. Those are feelings, and feelings are not reliable inputs under pressure. The actual fix is removing feelings from the decision entirely. If your entry criteria are specific and written down in advance, the question in the moment stops being how confident do I feel about this and becomes something far more boring and far more reliable. Does this meet my written criteria? Yes or no? That single shift from a feeling-based decision to a checklist-based decision is one of the most repeated pieces of advice among traders who've survived a decade or more in the markets for a very good reason. Remove the feeling from the decision, and you remove fear and greed's ability to control it. So how do you actually break a 4-stage cycle that's built into your own brain chemistry. Not with motivation. Motivation evaporates the instant the market gets emotional, and the market is emotional constantly. You need structure that holds up without requiring you to feel calm. 3 things consistently separate traders who make it through this cycle from the ones who don't. First, a written, pre-decided exit for every trade, set before you enter, never during. If you decide your stop loss while a trade is already open and moving against you, your brain will renegotiate that number in real time, specifically to avoid the pain of admitting you were wrong. Decide it before emotion has a seat at the table, and then treat it as non-negotiable, the same way you treat a seatbelt, not something you reconsider mid-crash. Second, a hard daily loss limit that shuts the platform down completely, with 0 exceptions. Not a guideline you'll try to follow. A rule enforced the same way a fire alarm doesn't ask for your opinion before it goes off. That 2-loss rule from earlier exists for exactly this reason. It's not there to protect you from the market. It's there to protect you from the version of yourself that shows up 10 minutes after a painful loss. Third, a trading journal that captures the emotion behind every trade, not just the entry price and exit price. Almost every trader logs what happened. Almost none log why they actually clicked the button in that specific moment. But that why is where your personal version of this trap actually lives. Review it once a week, and patterns will start jumping out, because everyone's specific trigger looks a little different. For some, it's Mondays after a losing Friday. For others, it's the 3rd trade of any single day, win or lose. You won't know yours until you start writing it down. None of these 3 things fix the market. They were never meant to. What they fix is the version of you that shows up after the market has already done something to you emotionally. And that version of you, left completely unmanaged, is the real reason most trading accounts don't survive. Not bad luck, not a bad strategy. An unmanaged reaction to a normal, completely expected part of trading. Sometimes you lose. Let's put the whole cycle back together, because seeing it as one connected loop is what makes it recognizable in your own trading. It starts with a winning streak, which triggers overconfidence. Overconfidence leads to oversized risk and skipped rules. When the inevitable loss hits, and it always eventually hits, it triggers revenge trading. Not because you actually believe the next trade is good, but because you need the painful feeling to go away immediately. That spiral burns you enough times that fear creeps in on the next legitimate setup, causing hesitation, which flips instantly into FOMO the second you watch that trade succeed without you. For stages, one single root cause underneath all of them. Emotion is sitting in the seat that should belong to a written rule. Go back to Mark for a second, the trader from the very beginning of this video, who turned 2 weeks of gains into a loss in 90 minutes. His mistake wasn't a bad trade. His mistake was letting the 4th trade get decided by how he felt about the 3rd one. Every single one of the 4 stages we just covered was present in those 90 minutes, back to back like dominoes. So here's the one question I want you to actually ask yourself the next time you're about to click buy or sell, especially after a big win or a painful loss. Am I taking this trade because it meets my written criteria or because of how I feel right now? If you can honestly answer that question every single time, you have already solved more of trading psychology than most traders ever will. If any part of this felt uncomfortably familiar, that's not a bad sign. That's awareness. And awareness is the only thing that has ever actually broken this cycle for anyone. The traders who last aren't the ones who stop feeling overconfidence, fear, or the urge for revenge. They're the ones who build a system that doesn't need them to feel calm in order to act calm. If this helped you see your own trading a little more clearly, subscribe, because next time we're going deeper into exactly how professional traders build a rule set specific enough to survive a real losing streak without falling apart. I'll see you in the next one.